Shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And it is lovely and delightful for me to be here in this mid-September Shabbos with you in the neighborhood, talking Jewy things, talking comedic and humorous things, which is what I love. I love to laugh, God damn it. There is nothing that makes me happier than laughing. And I'm going to be able to do that because we have a humorist, we have a comedy writer, we have a funny, fun person with us in the neighborhood. The poem that you're looking at right now is from a fellow named Mark Miller. Now, Mark has had a long career. He's been a TV writer. He's written, aside from columns and articles, he's written for Huffington Post, AARP magazine, and Jularius.com. This is a website. Did you know? I did not. Jularius.com. But he's also written a lot for TV. He wrote for one of the later Carol Burnett TV shows. He's written material for Jay Leno. He has also been in the writer's room for the new Odd Couple, the one, I think it's the one with the Schwarzes in it. There's Different Strokes, She's the Sheriff, The Munsters Today, with the late Conrad John Shuck. Oh my God, and even the new Hollywood Squares. Ladies and gentlemen, won't you please welcome to the neighborhood on this Shabbos morning, Mark Miller. Shalom, Mark. Oh, hold on. You gotta go on mute. You gotta go on mute your thing there. Hold on. I can't hear what you're saying.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're most
I'm
welcome.
delighted to be here. I apologize for being on mute.
Yeah, it's Goyim. They don't know how to work machinery. But let me ask you, first of all, a very important question. You look Italian rather than Jewish. What are you? What's your thing?
I'm Jewish, but I have the body of an Episcopalian.
I see that. You're not overweight, which is shocking to me at your age. And writing for television, you figure all you do is eat snack food. How do you keep your slim and svelte figure?
I'll tell you, I'm one of those annoying health people. I'm a vegan. I regularly exercise. I do yoga. I do resistance bands work. I walk, start every day with a 45-minute walk, exercise walk, and I bicycle and a little swimming as well.
Yeah, wow, how do you find the time? Well, you probably made some money in TV. You can do whatever the hell you want. But why did you go vegan? Why did you give up meat?
First of all, my father died at the age of 62. He was overweight, high blood pressure his whole life. So I sort of went in the opposite direction. And after college, I moved out to San Francisco from the East Coast. And that's a very health-oriented place. And in Los Angeles, at Whole Foods Market, they had a series of lectures by vegan chefs and vegetarian chefs. And what they said made sense. And as I looked into it, it sort of seemed the right thing to do for the planet, for the animals, and for our bodies. It just made perfect sense for somebody who wants to live longer than 62 and in good health.
So have you outlived your dad? Are you, as Loudon Wainwright saying, are you older than your old man now?
I'm 71, but I have the body of a 68-year-old.
Funny, but no, I mean, you don't look 71. You really don't. I'm Muslim, by the way. So
thank you.
Now let's talk about, more importantly, how Jewish were you when you were being raised?
We belonged to a conservative temple. I had a bar mitzvah. I went to Hebrew school before all that. But after, like so many people, after the bar mitzvah, became more secular. Went to a regular college, and I started worshiping women rather than.
Yeah. So you're not homo-secular.
Exactly.
So all right, but you still like Yom Kippur. You're vegan, so you're almost fasting anyway. Do you celebrate Yom Kippur? Do you do anything? You're just kind of it's a day.
Cultural Jewish. Went to holidays. The big holidays at the temple, and love the history of Jews. Yes. Proudly identify as a Jew. Just never got into the regular religious part of it.
Fair enough. And I hope you are at least on some level a Zionist. Please, God.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Not one of these left-wing morons. Thank you, God. All right, so now let's get into funny things. How did you become a professional writer?
By accident. I'm currently, in fact, I'm in the storytelling community in Los Angeles, and the current story I'm working on is titled my accidental career as a sitcom staff writer. Like so many things in our lives and in my life, I never planned for them, but fell into them by accident. So when I moved out to San Francisco after college as an English major, after having failed to get a job in New York City, which was my first choice, I thought in New York City, how cool would it be to work at one of the big publishing houses as an editorial assistant, helping really talented writers with their work. The publishing houses didn't share my dream for me. I guess they wanted people with more experience. So I thought, if I'm going to be miserable and unemployed on the East Coast, living in a city with my parents in a place where I didn't know anybody because they moved there when I was in college, why not start over in a very cool city of my choice and narrow down the choices to Washington, D.C. and San Francisco? Chose San Francisco and moved out there with 2 suitcases, not knowing anybody, and stayed at the Harcourt Residence Club, place where you could rent by the day, week, or month, and you got your meals there. And one of the people I met
and
there,
also you can rent there by the hour. I'm trying it.
by the hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't. Don't tell my wife. Yes. I don't know how I know that. I have no idea how I know that. It's right an hour. Okay. Continue.
So one of the people I met who was staying there was a guy named Tony DePaul, and he was doing stand-up comedy at a little place called the Intersection Coffee House in the North Beach section of San Francisco, the Italian section. And it was a basement of a church. He invited me to come see him perform, and I did, and I was blown away. I'd never seen people my own age doing stand-up comedy. I remember Alan King on the Ed Sullivan Show, Rodney Dangerfield, people like that. But these were young people my own age right in front of me doing stand-up comedy. And I thought, I'm a writer. Maybe I'll sort of keep coming to these things and pretend I'm interested in becoming a comedian and end up doing a story. Maybe the national press would be interested in this. So that's what I did. I kept coming to those things. And gradually, I liked it so much, I lost interest in doing the story, but started putting together a 5-minute routine for myself. It took me 2 months to work up the courage because I'm naturally a shy person, but eventually I did it. And the first time I went on stage, it went really well.
It only goes well the first time. And then the second time you bomb. And then the exactly. Third time you start learning. Yeah.
Exactly right. But it was in my bloodstream and I started doing it. And I ended up staying there for 4 years in San Francisco, doing it at the same time in the same freshman group of unknowns as Dana Carvey and Robin Williams. They worked at that very place.
So wait, stop there, because already I want to unpack a couple of things. Do you remember, I'll bet you do you remember any bit or jokes from that first 5 minutes that you came up with all those years ago?
I do. I did my impression of a hamster making love, and I would start doing hamster sounds like, and it would end up with my going, and then I'd say, was it good for you too? And I'd always got a laugh to the audience.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's funny. It's cute. I like it. Yeah.
That was the one of the routines, but mainly it was autobiographical. People said I reminded them of Woody Allen, Dick Cavett. I make fun of my.
At that point already, were you on the? And they're not a prop, right? They're not. You can't do this like I can do with this, which is. I can't do it. Oh, I gotta close this. Hold on. So. Yeah, pardon me. Had to cough up some phlegm. So. You did the 5, and then you went well, and then you started to do. Did you do the thing of like 5, 6, 7 times a night for weeks, or they don't have, or did they have that out there in California the way they have it in New York?
This was in 1975. They did not have comedy clubs. This was like the only thing going in San Francisco at the time, so you couldn't do it that many times. But I got totally into comedy, reading books about comedians, autobiography of Lenny Bruce, that sort of thing. And we became friends, all the comedians doing it together.
So you knew at that era, you knew Dana Carvey and you knew Robin. So do you have any Carvey stories, first of all? Do you any memories of hanging out with him, having a burger, having a whatever, or So
yeah, we all hung out together. Dana Carvey was big into lifting weights at the time, and he had just graduated from college, very young. but he was brilliant at doing impressions, and we were all very supportive of one another.
And what about Robin Williams?
Ended up going to his wedding out there to Valerie Velarde, who he met in a bar in San Francisco. She was a waitress. Robin.
He was not at the time that you went to his wedding and all that. Was he already famous, or was he still young, scrappy?
No, nobody had ever heard
Yeah.
of him. He hadn't done anything of fame, but the first time he came by the little intersection coffee house and did a bit on stage, we were all watching him like this. We couldn't believe it. He was so far above and beyond any of us. We knew right from the first time we saw him that he was destined for stardom and he was something special.
So were you, over the years, I mean, you went to the man's wedding. Did you keep in touch? Did you ever write for him, work with him, or you were friendly back in the day, but your paths never crossed again?
We were never friends, but we always said hi to each other in comedy clubs. And he wrote me a quote for my book of published humor essays, and he was always nice as could be to me.
And I guess the question, I mean, not to be unfunny, but did you ever have any clue when you knew him young that he had, that it was a depressive personality, that there was an up, but there was also a down?
Off stage, when we went to get a bite to eat or a drink afterwards, he was very shy and low key and sweet. So we saw that other, he turned it on for stage, and then he could easily just turn it off and relax and be normal off stage.
Right, but that isn't the kind of person who hangs himself. That's what I'm trying to,
Right, so he was diagnosed with something called Lewy body dementia. So it's a form of dementia, and you're not really yourself. It sort of takes over you. So I don't think it was his personality that did it so much so as the disease he developed.
All right, fair enough. Now, who else? You mentioned those two names. Were there others who came up in the ranks with you in the mid-'70s? Because that was still the era of people like David Brenner and Letterman and Pryor and Carlin, as opposed to the new crop who are more like 1980s that you're mentioning, I think.
Right. Those names you mentioned were generation before, primarily out of New York. I guess Lenny Bruce worked in LA a lot, but again, generations before. In my group, Bill Rafferty went on to a show called Real People. He made it well. And who else can I say? There were a few others that you probably wouldn't know as well. With Dana Carvey, I ended up writing on contributing to his show. He did a sketch comedy show on TV later on.
So how did you get from being part of this group of hustling to try and be a comedian to getting into the writing for TV comedy?
So the standard thing to do would be to start out in one of these smaller cities. Chicago, Texas, some cities, San Francisco, and then make your way to Los Angeles. So that's what happened. Robin went first, and obviously, he got on Laugh-In, he got Mork and Mindy, and sort of that was the route. That's where all the talent is. That's where the talent buyers were. So in everybody's mind,
he was in. You were in LA. He was already in LA, and these things are LA things. He can go to Texas and to Chicago and whatever.
No. I'm saying comedians start out in Texas. There's the Texas comedy scene in Houston, in Chicago, in smaller cities, and usually you do it there. You get your chops together and make your way to LA. So in all our minds in LA, we had heard of the Comedy Store. That was the big place where you're discovered. And also the Improv was there at that time, the LA branch of the New York Improv nightclub. And so we thought when we were ready, we'd move down there and try our luck. So what happened with me was Jay Leno was in town in San Francisco playing the Playboy Club. And we went to see him. And then he's known for coming out to local comedy clubs after his performances. And he did. And he saw me and he was very supportive. And he said, if you're ever down there, let me know and I'll help you get on at the clubs. and that's what happened. He helped me circumvent the audition process at the Improv and helped me become a regular there. And and then I got in at the Comedy Store through the audition process there. Mitzi Shore was
Comedy
the
Store
owner.
was the one with Mitzi
Mitzi
Shore.
Shore and Bud Friedman was the
Oh,
Improv.
right. Got it.
So I played both of them regularly, and then you get to know a whole other set of comedians at a higher level, and that led into my meeting one comedian there who somehow he was a writer also, and he had a deal to do a script at the Jeffersons, but he wanted a partner. He wanted somebody who was better at writing uh, than he was. So he asked if I'd like to join him, and of course I did, and that became my first paid script, an episode of the Jeffersons.
Which episode? I mean, it's not like I remember every episode of The Jeffersons, but can we? Which one? What did you write?
The title was the millionth customer, and it dealt with George Jefferson, who was a dry cleaner. His occupation, his wife Louise or Wheezy,
Yeah.
she uh, ends up walking into one of his competitors' dry cleaning stores, and as soon as she walks in, buzzers sound, confetti drops, lights go off. She's the 1 millionth customer. TV cameras appear, and obviously it makes no end of embarrassment to George because his competitor is getting all the publicity, and that was
I
the
gotta ask you. That's a brilliant like one line prep. Was that your idea or your partner's idea to for the script? You may have done all the writing on it, but whose idea was the initial idea for that?
To be perfectly honest, that was an idea that the producers had, the staff had. They gave it to us, and our job was to come up with an outline for it with a beginning, middle, and end, 3 acts, and then submit that, and then write the script for it, which we did.
So once you got that Jefferson's credit under your belt, what was your next gig?
Uh, then the next, this is going to sound really bizarre. That was a 1 episode thing.
Yeah.
Then my partner and I, who was Black, we decided what can we do? What's our next step? We both had resumes. We both had the writing sample of this script and individual spec scripts we had done on our own. I think I had one for Taxi, and he had one for something else. So this is going to sound like I'm making it up, but I swear it's true. We were walking along Sunset Boulevard. They used to have these things called phone booths. We stopped into a phone booth to make a call and put resumes on top of the phone booth when we went in there to make a call, and the wind blew them away. And the next day we get a call from a manager, a talent manager on Sunset Boulevard, who had found one of the scripts and said, would you guys be
scripts or resume? You found the resume?
I'm sorry, one of the resumes.
Yeah.
And said to us, would you guys possibly be interested in doing an episode for a new sitcom that's about to start at Paramount? And the sitcom was called The New Odd Couple, which is the Black version of The Odd Couple.
Amon Wilson, and who was the other guy? It was
Ron Glass.
Ron Glass from Barney Miller. Yeah.
Exactly. So of course we had to sell ourselves after that. We had to go in and meet with the manager. He had to read our scripts, and then he ended up submitting them to the powers that be at Paramount. They had us come in and interview with the producers of the show, and we ended up being hired as I guess they liked the fact that we were a black and white writing team because it was a Black show.
Yeah.
So
I heard. Yeah. But let me ask you, what is it like in those kinds of? I mean, obviously you're sweating bullets. You want the job. You're young and hungry, both of you. So, do you feel incredible pressure? Is it mellow? Are they bullshitting through their teeth every minute that they're talking to you, even though you got the gig? I mean, what is it like?
It's pressure because both of us were brand new to it. We didn't know what was what. So, I mean, part of that is good because you have the freedom to do what you want. But I remember it just being fun and lots of laughs, both in writing the scripts, going to the readings where we hear the actors read our words, seeing the stuff come to life on stage. And it was a whole other world. Long nights around the table with the other writers, ordering in food for those long nights, sometimes into the early morning hours. But it was just fun.
So, let me, because we now have this, and it's probably true, of these modern sitcoms where they've got like a dozen people around the table. And then there's one who's been there since the show began, but they're not actually writing anymore. They're just making sure that storylines are still being developed. Back in the day, was it like 2 or 3 writers and they went into the room and that was it, or what? Or the producers were there? How many people were in that room as you're going through the week's script?
Yeah, it was closer to the 12, as you first say, and it was a mixture of young, no experienced writers like ourselves. And on the other end of the spectrum, we had a guy named Harry Crane who had written for the Honeymooners. He was a veteran Jewish writer, and he was like a walking compendium of jokes and bits. And he was an invaluable resource to have along. And then in between, we had other writers who had written for other shows, including the Cosby Show and other respected shows. So there was a whole range of people. You had people with sitcom writing experience, stand-up comedians, people from Broadway, who would be great at structure and story to balance out jerks like us who were the jokes people.
Yeah, the joke machines versus let me ask you. The new Odd Couple was not a hit. Did it last a season or 2 seasons? I mean, how long did it go?
It lasted 2 seasons.
2 seasons, so that's not so bad. That's But did you feel like everybody wanted you to fail because the Odd Couple is like this sacrosanct, not only a play and movie, but a TV show, one of the greatest sitcoms of all time? Did you go in there thinking there's no matter, we could do the best scripts in the world, nobody's gonna care?
Well, here's part of the insurance on that is that number one, Gary Marshall was the executive producer. So he was the overseer. And number two, we weren't starting completely from scratch because we used the storylines from the original scripts and updated them. So, to bring in the Black element, bring in modern references and change stories in different ways. So we had help in that sense. So I don't think anybody was hoping for us to fail. Maybe the strict adherence to the original Odd Couple,
Because also they even updated the Odd Couple a couple of years ago with that dead guy from Friends, and it's pretty funny. But it's like, why? Think of something new, for God's sakes. Why do we need another? Tony Randall was perfect. Jack Klugman was perfect. I don't know. But you also did the new Monsters, which, as someone that seemed like a pretty good idea. How was it working on that?
That was called The Munsters Today, and it was a colorized version of the original black and white one with a new cast, and that was a pure joke show. That was a joy to write on, and that lasted a few seasons, and it was just a fun, silly show. I was going to say no deep messages, but sometimes we would have specific, morals or lessons or things like that.
What was your worst writing experience in terms of television?
We had a show with a producer who, let me contrast it. Gary Marshall had a famous saying, which was, "Life is more important than show business," which was a heavy lesson. You wouldn't hear this coming out of the mouths of agents, managers, producers, production people.
Or rabbis, for that matter. Yeah.
Or rabbis. So I'm not going to name the show or the producer to get them in trouble, but we had a producer who was the opposite of that, felt that show business was more important than life. He didn't have a family, and the show was all important. So he was not adverse to staying with us, his family, all through the night, and loved it. Plus, he loved to eat, so everything centered around ordering the food and choosing from the menus. And he was a little bit egocentric, so he would look for opportunities to write himself into the shows as an actor.
Actor too, as he would play bit parts on his own, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't sound like a terrible, like a tyrant kind of. Even that doesn't sound like a bad experience, though, really, or was it?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you somebody who whipped me and kept me in a closet locked. There was nobody like that.
Right. No, so but let me ask you then. So it sounds like you have a pretty charmed existence in terms of writing script writing?
Yeah, I'll tell you the worst part of being a staff writer, and that is there's no guarantees. And I guess that could hold for a lot of jobs. I love the coffee cup. Um, but when the job ends, if the show is canceled, you don't automatically start work on something else. It's like you're starting over. You got to find another job. So there were many periods of unemployment, and that may be the worst part of it.
This I mean, I can understand you being unemployed after a script or two, but once you've written for several seasons on the Monsters Today show, once you did this and that and this, and I would figure the agent just says, Monday morning, try, you got to call for this. Tuesday, all right, no, you get 24 hours off, but Tuesday we need to fly you to here to do, no? Really?
Well, those shows are already in motion with their full staffs, so they don't need anybody. B, the people that get the few jobs remaining, because remember, there's only X number of sitcom staffs. And this was in an era where reality shows were coming in because they were cheaper to produce. So there were fewer sitcom staff opportunities, and those tended to go to ones with people coming from shows with classy credits, Taxi, Cheers, Cosby, those kind of backgrounds.
As opposed to She's the Sheriff.
She's the Sheriff or the new Odd Couple. And C, you're competing with everybody else in town for them. So it's not a given. You don't automatically start for those reasons.
And did you feel, because these TV credits are from a few years ago, did you, as they say, age out? Is there a certain point when you're age or you feel like, you know what, if I were 30, I'd still be getting jobs. But once I hit 45, 50, that's going to the college kids from Yale.
Yeah, there was even an ageism lawsuit that I was part of because statistically it was found out that, once you pass the age of 40, it becomes harder and harder and more challenging. And we actually won the lawsuit and got some payment from the studios for it. So yes.
Then the
Right.
states paid you off and they still hired, 19 or 22-year-olds coming out of Columbia and whatever, Northwestern.
Yeah. Exactly. But so in my case, it forced me to look for other avenues to make a living from my writing. And I was never somebody that insisted on having a sitcom career. I just loved the process of writing anything and getting paid for my writing. So I ended up having a whole other, actually two other careers as a journalist and as a marketing writer, writing for businesses, copywriting, promoting their work.
Yeah, I was wondering because to say to be a journalist, that's not so, unless you're with a newspaper or a magazine, it's all spec, and there's another thing, you get a paycheck, and then 5 weeks later you get another story. But in marketing, I can see where that would be a more steady kind of, because you're married or were married or are married, were kids, whatever.
I was married with kids at the time. I'm currently divorced with kids.
So, are you out there single and ready to mingle? Oh, you wrote a book about it.
I did, and that book actually came from my journalism career because I lucked out. One day, the Los Angeles Times said, we're starting a new column called Laugh Lines. And if you can write jokes or humor essays, we're interested. And I did, and I ended up being one of the regular people there. So the book I wrote is a compilation of my humor essays, a lot of them about, in fact, most of them about dating. It's called 500 Dates. And they're a compilation of my published humor essays about my online dating adventures.
So all right, first of all, the book is called 500 Dates, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the Online Dating Wars, which is available still from Amazon.
Amazon or anything else.
Now,
Barnes and Noble.
So what are like one or two of the worst dates that you ever had dating? Post-divorce, yeah.
I showed up for one date, and often on these online dating sites, you'll just get headshots from the neck up. So it turns out that the bottom was enormous of this person, almost circus freak enormous.
Oh,
so that was a surprise.
Especially when you crawled out the next morning, you're like, I shouldn't have had that fourth vodka. Yeah.
Often, as you probably are aware, people misrepresent themselves on the dating profiles. And when I got to the coffee date for uh, another date, she admitted that she was, in fact, 15 years older than she had stated on her dating profile. And 15 years. And when I seemed a little perturbed by that, she accused me of being shallow.
Or ageist, for that matter. Well, how did she look? Did you sort of see, oh, she looks 25 years older than, or no?
Yeah, she looks substantially older than her photos. Obviously, people are using younger photos
from
a
a million.
lot.
What was the best? I mean, without getting into dirty, naughty, sexual things, although if you want to, we certainly can. I even have the sign ready for dirty stories as well as clean one. But like, were there dates that were spectacularly wonderful?
Yes, I'm currently 8 years into a relationship with somebody that I met with online dating, and that's happened a couple times. They'll work out. The challenge is you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you meet your princess. So a lot of people don't have the stomach for dating, and you have to be willing to endure those other dates. For me, it paid off because it led to the book.
And they didn't they go because you make a wonderful girl. You've been with him for. No, I kept in a book. Yeah,
Yeah.
show business truly is everything. That producer was right. Fuck real life. Show business is really everything. But let me. It's an important question here. The girl that you've known for 8 years. A, is she Jewish? B, are you going to put a ring on it? Answer either question first.
Uh, she's Jewish. I think we're both happy with the way things are for now. Uh, so
Yes, but how will you raise the children?
yeah, yeah. Things are good.
Now, where are you writing for these days? Because are you still a marketing professional, or did you retire from that, or where can we read you now?
I'm semi-retired now, meaning I do freelance working in both the comedy writing and marketing world, and I'm having fun being part of the Los Angeles storytelling scene, which is a collection of clubs where you go and you tell true stories about your life, mostly funny. I have one coming up on the 30th of August called NDA, which stands for Non-Disclosure Agreement, and uh,
That's at the Crow, by the way, which is in Santa
at
Monica, California. That's
at the Crow, and I will tell the story of how I my whole life as well as my career was unplanned. How I've sort of succeeded by drifting accidentally from one thing to another without having any goals in life.
so. Are you compiling the other writings since since the Bad Dates book, or the 500 Dates book? Are you compiling other things into another book, perhaps, or is it just catch as catch can for the storytelling, or what?
Uh, Eventually, I'd like to compile it into a book, but from now, I'm just accumulating the ammunition for that.
Oh, I like the phrasing, accumulating the end. So we're talking, by the way, I keep forgetting to re-mention your name. It's Mark Miller, and there's so
Yes.
many Mark Miller. If you Google Mark Miller, you won't find him. If you Google Mark Miller comedy, you won't find him. Every other person on the street is fucking named Mark Miller. So you've got to look for his website, which is markmillerhumorist.com. MarkMillerHumorist.com to learn more about the NDA show that he's doing, and also the other pieces and things that you've done in your career, in your past. But let's just tell please more stories, even though they're not war stories, they're happy, wonderful stories about celebrities that you've worked for, written for, been on TV shows, writing for, or even back from the comedy club. Who else? Who else? Tell us.
Um, Different Strokes, one of the shows I was on, was famous for its stunt casting. It would have people that ordinarily you wouldn't think it would have any connection to this family, the Drummond family. You know, he was a wealthy businessman, but how would he know Mr. T? And yet Mr. T was one of the guest stars, as was Milton Berle. And Milton Berle, we worked into a storyline where Gary Coleman was going to have a bar mitzvah somehow. I don't remember how that happened, but I have an image of him wearing a
Was that
yarmulke.
whose idea was that? Was that the
Uh,
producers or yours?
I may have had something to do with that. I don't know. But so it was great fun meeting these celebrities.
Yeah,
And
Uncle Milty could be kind of difficult. I know he was on Saturday Night Live. How was he on that week that you had him for Different Strokes?
um, uh, he was good. He behaved himself. As long as you kept the subject to talking about him, you were on fair
Yeah.
fair ground. Um, who else?
What
Uh,
was Gary Coleman like? Did you ever have any interactions with him? Because he was a nutty little fella. So,
yeah, whenever you're on a staff, you have close and frequent interactions with the people. They have to go through a read through initially of the script, and then rehearsals, and you give them notes. And same way, he was all in his head. It was like you didn't exist. He didn't see you. He would smile, but to expect him to ask about you or how was your weekend, you wouldn't get anything like that. But
what about
uh,
though? Have you have you ever stood close enough to Conrad Bain to smell him? I've always wondered what Conrad Bain smells like.
that's my one regret, is that I never gave him a sniff.
They never gave Conrad Bain a sniff. That's a wasted opportunity right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Two of the people I worked for were absolutely wonderful for writers, and one was Suzanne Summers on
Was
She's
she
the
lovely?
Sheriff.
Was she
Yeah,
nice?
she had us all the writers out to her house for lunch, and she treated us with respect. She, I guess, from Three's Company, she realized the value of writers and appreciated that. And the other person was Carol Burnett, who couldn't have been nicer and sweeter to writers. I was on a show, it was like a new Carol Burnett show where they were putting together a new hip cast that would supposedly appeal to the Saturday Night Live audience of sketches, but that didn't last more than a season. They wanted to see her classic sketches, and
And
they
it was
weren't ready
Artie
for that.
and Tim. What year? What? It was called the New Carol Burnett Show. When was this? When?
Um, maybe around 97, 98. I'm probably completely wrong, but it was something like that.
Now, did any of those young hip cast members actually go on to be, the way Steve Martin came out of forgotten shows like the Starland Vocal Band show, and then Steve Martin was it? Were any of the people there we know now as like, oh my god?
Yes. Um, one of them, Linda Wallum, went on to create the show Nurse Jackie. She became the executive producer and creator of that. And uh, who's the guy I always forget? He's like a big, loud Jewish guy.
Me,
He's been on, he's been on Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm sorry, my
not Richard Kind, who's not very
yes,
loud.
Richard Kind was
Who
a
is
cast
Richard?
member
Yeah,
of
okay.
that show, and
Big loud Jewish Richard Kind. Yes, okay.
I apologize for describing him that way, but yeah, he's probably the best known of those people.
Well, no, he's gotten pretty. Let me ask. This does bring up a question because you went right from the whole sitcom world, and as you said, you did that lawsuit, you aged out, and so forth, and went right to journalism and other things. But what about opportunities, or have you not even really dipped a toe in, video series like the streaming stuff, the online shorts, 10-minute sitcom thing that really took off during the pandemic, and I guess is still kind of there. What about all that? You just
I, I have not dipped my toe into that kind of stuff, though. It's in my mind. I have dipped my toe into the feature comedy world and hooked up with a producer named Bob Kosberg, who's still active today, Kosberg, and he's known as the king of pitch in Hollywood for his ability to go into a studio and get a deal to make a movie based on what started out as a one-liner, high concept pitch. And he did that to me a couple of times. And he actually describes his adventures with me in his book called How to Sell Your Idea to Hollywood. So
so did you ever get? I know you probably have movies in development. Did any get made?
one TV movie got made called Home by Midnight, and we got paid for the concept of it. I think different writers ended up writing it, but the concept was uh, uh, a girl goes out and has adventures on the town. She's like a teenage girl having a date for her first time. And her father is so concerned about her on her first date that he secretly follows her through the date. And the date, ironically, turns out to be the sweetest, most ironic, respectful date in history. But every possible hellish situation happens to the father as he's following his daughter.
I kind of,
So
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you could probably crunch that. The producer guy could crunch that into like 15 words and go boom, and he sold it, and it was made. It was released theatrically, or where was it?
on TV. It was TV.
Who starred? Who was in it? Who played the dad?
Um,
I mean, we can look it up, but
and again, it was a black cast. I think Clifton Davis might have been the dad, and I think Tempest Bledsoe, one of the Cosby girls,
yeah.
was the daughter.
So how long did you work specifically with this black part? It sounds like you guys were together as a team for a decade or two, rather than you going off, because you were still doing these black shows, or no? Or
No, we were only together for the Jefferson script and for the New Odd Couple for that series. And then we went our separate ways. And when I went to Different Strokes, I partnered up with a different person, another white Jewish guy who could write for black characters. So there were two
anyway,
of
it's
us.
just something else, isn't it? It's just like, back in the day, it's like, yes, we're doing a black show in 1970s, 1980s, and this is important, and we have to have some black representation. But really, we need Jewish writers, no matter what. Anything
Yes.
like the Martin Luther King roots story. Oh no, we need Jewish writers. We gotta have it. So, did you also work with Roseanne at some point? Roseanne Arnold. Speaking of Jews.
I had one joke writing session at her house with her and contributed some material to her. She was very complimentary. And then I went on to sitcom staff work, and she went on. I think we all know what she went on to, but
this
yeah,
was before she was okay. So wow.
because she was one of the ones at the Comedy Store who did stand up and was discovered there.
So you saw her really rising as a rising. Wow.
Yeah, and I think as we were talking before, where you come from other places to Los Angeles or New York, I think she was part of the Denver group of comedians before she arrived here.
Now, what about Rodney? You knew Rodney Dangerfield.
I sold him one joke. In fact, he was on the Paramount lot. I don't even know if he was working for our show or another show, but I remember walking with him as he walked on the lot and said, are you open to buying material, looking at material? And he said, yes. And he ended up buying one joke from me, which was something along the lines of, I know my daughter's loose. Guy in a singles bar asked what her sign was. She said, yield.
All right, funny. With the Rodney thing, my daughter don't get no respect.
Yeah.
No respect at all. Nowadays, a comedian now is, oh, she's such a slut. She's such a different times. And also, I gotta ask, did you also sell material or whatever to Joan Rivers?
I did. She came into the Improv frequently to check out the talent or perform, and I approached her, and she was open to material, and ended up both submitting stuff to her and being invited to her house where we would have joke writing sessions. Her husband Edgar was still alive, so he was hovering in the distance to make sure I wasn't Fabio and she wasn't succumbing to my charms.
Well, you're not a bad-looking guy, you were single, or maybe not at that point. But yeah, all right. Did she succumb? Did she? No.
No, but she was notorious for underpaying writers. I think she paid something like $7 or $8 a joke when the standard thing was $25 or $50 a joke. But I guess she felt you could trade off on the prestige value of working with Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
Also, she tells a lot of jokes very quickly, so it's very expensive for her to fill 75 minutes. Which
exactly.
You have to buy 150 jokes, and
exactly right.
Adds up. I gotta tell you.
Yes.
So you're doing storytelling now. Will you ever do stand up again, or story as a mellower kind of like, I want to read, I want to get laughs in a gentle way?
I did stand up, and for about 10 years, I got it out of my system, and I started getting bored with my own act, and it was more fun and challenging for me to write new things in other people's voices or to write these true stories for my life where you could go deeper and expand the thing rather than one-liner jokes, which was my style. So I don't feel any urge to get back into stand-up.
Now, the other question is since you're Jewish and you do script writing, you never wrote a play.
Never wrote a play.
Why the theater bug did not get? Because you were in LA or something, or why? Why not?
I,
I mean, you figure you would have tried that, especially being in New York at first.
I guess the wisdom was that there was no money in it,
Oh,
that all the money was in TV and movie writing. So I thought, why not start with those? Also, plays seem to be very deep and exploring character and story, and it didn't seem to lend itself to a guy whose strength was one-liners.
don't tell that to Neil Simon. But okay,
Exactly right.
or to who's that guy? The guy on Broadway right now, with O'Mary. What's his name? The fella. He makes fun of Lincoln getting shot, and it's funny. Cola Scola is anyway. But here's the thing: we've been talking to Mark Miller. So remember that his website is markmillerhumorist.com. markmillerhumorist.com to also find out all the things he's doing, where else he'll be storytelling. But his first big gig, well, his latest big gig, is August 30th. I don't know what day of the week that is. Do you know off the top of your brain there?
I believe it's a Friday.
Oh, Shabbos evening. All right, if you're not religious, go to see the NDA show. He will be one of several storytellers there at a place called The Crow in Santa Monica, California. You can also still get copies of his book on Amazon and other places books are sold. It's called 500 Dates, Dispatches from the Front Lines of the Online Dating Wars. So before we let you go, Mark Miller, one more question, which is, besides me, what is your proudest professional moment as a writer or performer? Like, what is the one thing that, if you were carving these things on your tombstone, God forbid, what would you point and go, yeah?
Well, one that I'm very proud of and excited by was when I made the transition from stand-up in clubs to stand-up on TV. And one of the TV shows that was one of the first things I did was called Star Search. It was hosted by Ed McMahon, and you would be rated by judges, like an American Idol type thing. But they had comedians, singers, they even had actors doing dramatic stuff. And I was the first comedian, they told me, that got a perfect 4.0 score from all 4 judges. So that was a thrill, both to be on TV and to accomplish that. Unfortunately, the second show, when you come back for your return engagement, you're up against somebody doing their best material against your second best material. So it's set up to fail. But I wanted to thank you and tell you one of the quotes I read from your bio that I loved, and that is, "I'm so far on the fringe, it's a wonder I'm still on the tablecloth." And I love that. I identified with it. It made me laugh, and I applaud you.
Nachas from one writer to another. Thank you. I applaud you for complimenting me, which is really the best thing another person can ever do. So I compliment you for being amusing and funny and lovable. Can we see by the way, is the Star Search clip still on? I'm doing the Joe Franklin move here. Is the Star Search clip on YouTube? Can we watch you?
I think it is. I'll look for it and send it to you.
Or if not, tell us one of the jokes that you remember. You must remember your bit on Star Search.
My opening line was always a guaranteed laugh getter. And I would come out, look at them and say, "How many like me already?" And they always went for that.
I like that. Yeah. Now, granted, Son of Sam has also used that line. It didn't quite. Gary Gilmore trying it. No, but with you, it works because you were instantly likable, and it was only compounded moment after moment through our time together. So, Mark Miller.
Well, most of my act is repurposed lines from serial killers, so that was okay with me.
I just come on stage and go, "Let's do it." Anyway, Mark Miller, markmillerhumorist.com. Thank you so much for spending a bit of your Shabbos morning with us. I wish you more creativity, more articles, more things to compile for the second book, and just more stories and more storytelling. And we'd love to hear more of your life and your stories. Come back on the show here as well. We'd love to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's been a
Shalom!
pleasure. Thank you so much.
And
Shalom.
happy soon to be not quite Jewish New Year. It's early, but start thinking about it. Mwah!
You too. All the best.
Shalom. Bye-bye.
Bye.